Some prisons are built from concrete. Others are built from the stories people choose to believe. The iron gate groaned open with a slow metallic scrape that echoed through the cool October morning, and Maya Carter stepped into sunlight she hadn't felt without fences for 5 years. Everything she owned fit inside a clear plastic bag that held 2 folded t-shirts, a worn paperback novel with dog-eared pages, a family photo faded almost white around the edges, and a silver bracelet she had made during long nights when sleep refused to come. The crisp air carried the scent of damp leaves and distant traffic, so ordinary that it almost hurt. Cars rushed past the correctional facility without slowing, their drivers focused on jobs, school drop-offs, grocery lists, ordinary lives that had continued without her. Maya tightened her fingers around the plastic bag until it crinkled softly. She wasn't thinking about freedom. She was thinking about one little girl who had been only 3 years old the last time she'd wrapped tiny arms around her neck. Every letter Maya had written, every calendar square she'd crossed off, every birthday she'd counted from behind locked doors had led to this single morning. Lily would be waiting. She had imagined it 1,000 different ways. Her daughter running across the sidewalk, small sneakers slapping against concrete, a laugh breaking through tears, a hug so tight it would erase 5 years in one heartbeat. Her eyes searched beyond the parking lot until she saw a little girl standing near the visitor area. The child wore a yellow jacket several sizes too big and clutched the strap of a worn backpack decorated with tiny blue stars. Even from 50 feet away, Maya recognized the slight tilt of her head, the careful way she shifted her weight from one foot to the other whenever she felt nervous. Lily. Her heart lurched, so suddenly it almost stole her breath. Maya took one step forward, then another. Her lips trembled into the smile she had rehearsed for years. But Lily didn't move. She didn't run. She didn't even smile. Instead, she remained perfectly still, her small hand resting inside the hand of a tall man dressed in a charcoal overcoat. His posture was calm, almost protective, but his face carried none of the cold arrogance Maya had expected from someone who looked wealthy enough to belong on magazine covers rather than outside a state prison. His dark eyes watched Maya with quiet restraint, as though he understood exactly how fragile this moment was. Maya stopped walking. The distance between them suddenly felt like miles instead of yards. Lily looked older than 8. Childhood had been replaced by caution. The little girl studied Maya the same way children sometimes studied strangers in grocery stores, curious but uncertain whether they were safe. Maya swallowed hard before forcing out the only word that mattered. Lily. The girl's fingers tightened around the man's hand. Are you really my mom? She asked softly. The question struck harder than any prison sentence ever could. Maya felt the world narrow until only her daughter's uncertain eyes remained. Baby, she whispered, her voice cracking beneath the weight of 5 stolen years. I've missed you every single day. Lily didn't answer. She lowered her eyes toward the pavement. Aunt Denise said mothers don't leave their children unless they want to. The words settled between them like winter frost. Maya opened her mouth, but nothing came out. 5 years of explanations collapsed beneath one innocent sentence. The stranger finally spoke, his voice low and steady. Please don't rush her. Maya looked at him for the first time. Who are you? He hesitated just long enough to reveal that the answer mattered. My name is Adrian Blackwell. Recognition flickered across the faces of 2 reporters standing near the entrance, whispering as they noticed him. Maya didn't recognize the name. She only saw the expensive coat, the polished shoes, the quiet confidence of someone who had never worried about rent or grocery money. Why is my daughter with you? She asked, her tone sharper now. Adrian glanced at Lily before answering. Because someone asked me to make sure she wasn't standing here alone today. Maya frowned. Who? Adrian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That's a longer story than we have time for. Before Maya could press him further, a black SUV pulled into the parking lot across the street. Adrian's expression shifted. Not fear. Concern. He looked back at Maya, meeting her eyes with calm urgency. Listen carefully, he said. Someone has spent 5 years making sure Lily believes a lie. If you try to force this reunion today, you'll lose her before you ever get the chance to tell her the truth. Maya stared at him, every instinct screaming to ignore him and wrap her daughter in her arms anyway. Then she looked at Lily again. The little girl hadn't taken a single step forward. She wasn't angry. She was afraid. And for the first time since the prison gate had opened, Maya realized freedom would be the easy part. Earning back her daughter's trust would be the real sentence. Ignoring every instinct she had left required more strength than surviving 5 years behind locked doors. Maya forced her feet to remain planted, while Lily continued standing beside Adrian, the morning breeze lifting loose curls around the little girl's face. Somewhere beyond the prison walls a freight train sounded its horn, long and mournful, reminding Maya that life never paused simply because someone's heart had broken. A silver sedan pulled into the visitor parking lot, and within seconds the driver's door opened. A woman in her early 40s stepped out wearing an expensive camel-colored coat, sunglasses, and an expression sharpened by years of certainty. Denise Carter walked toward them with measured confidence, as though she had rehearsed this entrance many times. Lily immediately looked toward her aunt, seeking reassurance before glancing back at Maya. That small movement revealed everything Maya needed to know. Trust had been carefully redirected over 5 long years. Denise stopped a few feet away and offered a polite smile that never reached her eyes. "You look healthy," she said evenly. "Prison must have treated you better than I expected." Maya ignored the remark. "Let me talk to my daughter." Denise folded her arms. "You were talking to her. Just remember she is not 3 anymore. She has questions now." Maya looked directly at Lily. "Sweetheart, I wrote to you every month. Did you receive my letters?" Lily hesitated, her fingers tightening around the strap of her backpack. She slowly shook her head. "I only got 1 birthday card when I was 6. Maya felt the air leave her lungs. She had written 63 letters. Every birthday, every Christmas, every Mother's Day, every report card Denise had promised to send updates about. "I wrote hundreds," Maya whispered. Denise answered before Lily could. "Children do not need to carry the weight of prison correspondence. I did what I thought was best." Adrian's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Maya noticed it. He already knew. "You kept them," Maya said quietly. Denise did not deny it. "I protected her childhood. By making her believe I forgot her?" Maya asked. Denise removed her sunglasses, revealing tired eyes that carried something more complicated than simple cruelty. "You were not there when she cried herself to sleep. You were not there when she woke up screaming because every other child had a mother waiting outside school. I was there. Every single day." Maya had no answer for that. Denise was wrong, but not entirely. Someone had tucked Lily into bed. Someone had packed school lunches. Someone had sat through fevers and nightmares while Maya counted years inside a concrete cell. The silence stretched until Adrian finally stepped forward. "This is not helping, Lily." Denise turned toward him. "You have done enough already." Adrian reached into the inside pocket of his coat and removed a large manila envelope. "Maya, there is a furnished apartment on Maple Street. Rent has already been paid for 6 months. There is also a temporary position waiting for you at the East Side Community Resource Center. They hire women rebuilding their lives." Maya stared at the envelope without touching it. "Why?" she asked. Adrian met her eyes. "Because you deserve the chance to stand on your own feet before the hearing." "What hearing?" Maya asked. Denise answered this time. "Family court. 14 days from today." Maya slowly turned toward her. "What are you talking about?" Denise inhaled deeply before speaking. "I filed for permanent legal guardianship last month. The hearing date cannot be changed." Maya's fingers loosened around the plastic bag until it nearly slipped from her hand. "You are trying to take my daughter." Denise looked away for only a moment before answering. "I am trying to keep her life stable." Adrian spoke calmly. "If Maya can demonstrate stable housing, employment, and consistent contact before the hearing, the judge will consider reunification." Denise looked at him sharply. "You sound remarkably prepared." Adrian said nothing. Maya looked from one face to the other, realizing everyone else had known about the next 14 days long before she had walked through the prison gate. She accepted the envelope at last, though her pride protested every movement. It felt heavier than paper should. As Denise gently guided Lily toward the waiting car, Maya knelt a few feet away. "I will see you again very soon," she said softly. Lily hesitated before giving the smallest nod. "Can I ask you something?" Maya smiled through gathering tears. "Anything." Lily looked at her with heartbreaking seriousness. "If you never stopped loving me, why did nobody ever tell me?" Before Maya could answer, Denise quietly opened the rear passenger door and Lily climbed inside. The sedan disappeared down the highway until it became only another moving dot beneath the pale, autumn sky. Maya lowered her eyes to the envelope still resting in her hands. It had not been sealed. Inside, beneath the apartment keys and employment papers, rested an old photograph with bent corners. She carefully pulled it free. The picture showed her standing outside the headquarters of Blackwell Industries 5 years earlier, only hours before everything in her life had fallen apart. On the back, written in neat black ink, were 6 words that made her pulse stop. You were never the real target. Ironically, the first place Maya visited after leaving prison was not the small apartment waiting for her, but a quiet city bus stop where she sat alone with the photograph balanced across her knees. Buses came and went, their brakes hissing against the curb, while office workers hurried past carrying steaming coffee cups and checking their phones. Nobody noticed the woman studying an old picture as though the answers to her entire life had been hidden inside faded ink. The words on the back refused to leave her mind. You were never the real target. Maya traced the handwriting with her thumb. It was careful, deliberate, unmistakably written by someone who expected her to understand its meaning someday. She did not. At least not yet. 40 minutes later, the bus rolled through downtown toward Maple Street. Glass office towers reflected the bright autumn sky, while people crossed intersections carrying briefcases, gym bags, and grocery sacks. 5 years had changed more than buildings. Stores she remembered were gone. Restaurants had different names. Even the skyline seemed taller. Yet the strangest feeling was realizing that everyone else had continued living while her own life had been frozen on a single terrible day. The apartment building was modest but clean, with brick walls softened by climbing ivy and flower boxes beneath several windows. An elderly superintendent smiled warmly after checking her identification. Mr. Blackwell said you might arrive this afternoon, he explained. Everything is ready. Maya thanked him quietly and climbed the narrow staircase. Apartment 3B smelled faintly of fresh paint and clean laundry. Afternoon sunlight spilled through the living room window onto simple furniture that looked gently used rather than expensive. A small dining table stood beside the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed softly. There were dishes in the cabinets, fresh towels folded neatly in the bathroom, and a single potted fern resting on the windowsill. Nothing about the apartment felt luxurious. Everything about it felt intentional. Maya slowly placed her plastic bag on the kitchen counter before opening every cabinet, as though expecting hidden conditions to appear behind the dishes. She had learned long ago that kindness sometimes carried invisible prices. On the dining table lay another envelope. This one contained employment paperwork for the East Side Community Resource Center, a bus pass valid for 1 month, and a handwritten note. The job is yours only if you choose it. No one there knows your past unless you decide to tell them. Maya read the sentence twice. There was no signature. There did not need to be. A soft knock interrupted the silence. She hesitated before opening the door. Adrian stood in the hallway without his overcoat, dressed simply in a navy sweater and dark slacks. Without the polished appearance from earlier, he looked less like a corporate executive and more like an ordinary man carrying the weight of unfinished business. I wanted to make sure you found the place, he said. Maya folded her arms. You seem to know exactly where I will be before I do. Adrian accepted the accusation without defending himself. May I come in? She stepped aside cautiously. Adrian looked around the apartment before noticing the photograph resting on the table. His expression changed almost imperceptibly. You read the back. I did. Maya lifted the picture. You are going to explain why I was standing outside your company 5 years ago. Adrian remained silent for several seconds. Outside, a child laughed somewhere in the courtyard below. The ordinary sound only deepened the tension inside the room. Finally he spoke. You worked for Northbridge Financial. They handled contracts for Blackwell Industries. Maya frowned. I was an accounting assistant. Nothing more. Adrian nodded slowly. Exactly. Someone needed access to financial records. You were close enough to become convenient. Maya searched his face. Convenient for what? For taking the blame. The room suddenly felt smaller. You were telling me someone planned everything? Adrian looked down briefly before meeting her eyes again. I believe they did. Maya's heartbeat quickened. And where were you while my life fell apart? Adrian did not look away. Signing documents I should have questioned. His voice remained calm, but regret settled into every word. I believed people I trusted. I approved reports without asking who would be hurt if they were wrong. Maya stared at him in disbelief. So you are responsible? Partly, Adrian answered. Not legally, but morally. I have carried that answer for 5 years. Maya wanted to be angry. She wanted to order him out, tear the apartment keys in half, reject every offer he had made. Instead, she noticed something unexpected. Adrian was not asking for forgiveness. He was not making excuses. He looked like a man who had already judged himself more harshly than anyone else could. Why help me now? She asked quietly. Adrian walked toward the window overlooking the courtyard where children chased one another through fallen leaves. Because 6 months ago someone sent me a package containing evidence that your conviction never should have happened. Maya felt her breath catch. Who sent it? Adrian slowly reached into his coat pocket and removed a small silver charm shaped like a tiny heart. Maya recognized it instantly. It had once hung from the bracelet she gave her own mother years before she died. Adrian placed it carefully on the table between them. The return address belonged to your mother's hospice nurse, he said softly. The package arrived 3 weeks after your mother passed away. Inside was this charm, and your name. Ironically, the first peaceful night Maya had slept in years lasted barely 4 hours. She woke before sunrise, startled by silence instead of steel doors and echoing footsteps. Pale blue light filtered through the apartment window as she sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the tiny silver heart charm resting in her palm. Her mother had worn it every day until illness had made even jewelry feel too heavy. Somehow it had crossed years of separation to find its way back to her. Maya closed her fingers around it before quietly getting dressed. At exactly 7:30 that morning, she stepped through the front doors of the Eastside Community Resource Center, carrying the same clear plastic bag that had left the prison with her. The building smelled of fresh coffee, disinfectant, and old books. Children laughed somewhere down the hallway while volunteers arranged canned food on metal shelves. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and bright eyes greeted her with an easy smile. You must be Maya. I am Eleanor. Welcome. There was no hesitation when she offered her hand. No suspicious glance. No uncomfortable questions about the missing years on Maya's employment history. Eleanor simply walked her through the building, introducing her to staff members by first name only. Some coordinated housing assistance. Others organized job training, clothing donations, and after-school tutoring. Every room seemed filled with ordinary people quietly helping strangers rebuild ordinary lives. Your job starts small, Eleanor explained as they reached a storage room lined with neatly labeled shelves. Inventory, organizing donations, and helping families find what they need. Around here, nobody is above any task. Maya nodded gratefully. The work was simple, but after 5 years of asking permission for every movement, even folding blankets onto shelves felt strangely meaningful. By lunchtime, her arms ached pleasantly from carrying boxes, and she realized nobody had looked at her with pity all morning. They simply expected her to work, and she did. During her break, she carried a paper cup of coffee outside to a small courtyard behind the center. Autumn leaves drifted across the sidewalk while neighborhood children played basketball in a nearby park. Maya watched them quietly until she noticed a familiar black SUV parked across the street. Adrian remained inside with the engine off, reading documents spread across the passenger seat. He did not approach. He did not wave. He simply waited as though making certain she reached her first day safely before disappearing into his own responsibilities. Maya frowned slightly. She still did not know whether to resent him or trust him. Perhaps both were possible. Her phone vibrated unexpectedly. The inexpensive prepaid phone Eleanor had helped her activate displayed an unfamiliar number. Hello. Maya answered cautiously. Mom. The tiny voice almost stopped her heart. Lily, I only have a minute, Lily whispered. Aunt Denise is inside the grocery store. Maya stood so quickly that coffee splashed onto the concrete. Are you all right? Yes. A brief pause followed. I just wanted to ask, what was Grandma like? Maya blinked in surprise. Why are you asking about Grandma? Because Aunt Denise said she died before I was old enough to remember her. But I found something. Maya's pulse quickened. Found what? A bracelet. Another pause. It has a little heart missing from it. Maya instinctively reached into her pocket and wrapped her fingers around the silver charm Adrian had given her. The two pieces belonged together. Tears filled her eyes before she realized they were coming. Grandma used to sing while she cooked, Maya said softly. She burned pancakes almost every Saturday because she always danced instead of watching the stove. Lily giggled quietly. It was the first genuine laugh Maya had heard from her daughter in 5 years. The sound wrapped itself around every broken place inside her. Really, really, Maya smiled. She said burned pancakes still tasted better when people ate them together. Lily grew quiet again. Mom. The word came naturally this time, without hesitation. Maya closed her eyes. Yes, sweetheart. Did you ever stop thinking about me? Maya swallowed hard. Not for one single minute. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. Sometimes silence carried more truth than words. Suddenly another voice echoed faintly in the background. Lily. Denise was returning. I have to go, Lily whispered urgently. I found something else too. What is it? Maya asked quickly. There is writing inside the bracelet. What does it say? But the line went dead before Lily could answer. Maya remained standing in the courtyard, holding the silent phone against her ear. Across the street, Adrian looked up from his paperwork, immediately recognizing the mixture of hope and worry on her face. Without saying a word, he stepped out of the SUV, just as Maya noticed someone else watching from the opposite corner. A middle-aged man wearing a baseball cap lowered his newspaper the instant their eyes met before calmly walking away. Adrian followed Maya's gaze. His expression hardened for the first time since they had met. That is the third time this week, he said quietly. Someone has been watching you. Ignoring the man in the baseball cap proved impossible after Adrian pointed him out. Maya watched until the stranger disappeared around the corner, blending into the afternoon crowd as though he had never been there at all. The uneasy feeling lingered long after he was gone. Adrian slipped his hands into his coat pockets and kept his voice low. I have asked a private investigator to review surveillance footage from the neighborhood. Whoever he is careful. He never gets close enough to break any laws. Maya looked at him with growing suspicion. Do you think he has something to do with what happened 5 years ago? Adrian hesitated. I do not know yet, but I have learned that people who worked very hard to hide the truth rarely stop watching it. The word stayed with Maya throughout the rest of the afternoon. She returned to the donation room and buried herself in work, sorting children's coats by size, labeling canned goods, and helping a young father choose winter boots for his little boy. The father apologized repeatedly because he could not afford new shoes. Maya smiled gently and knelt beside the child, carefully tying the laces before saying, There is nothing embarrassing about accepting help while you are working towards something better. Eleanor noticed the exchange from across the room, but said nothing. Later, as volunteers stacked folding chairs after an evening support meeting, she quietly walked over carrying 2 cups of tea. You have a gift, Eleanor said. Maya looked surprised. For organizing shelves? Eleanor smiled. For making people feel seen. Maya lowered her eyes toward the steaming cup. I know what it feels like to become invisible. Eleanor studied her thoughtfully before changing the subject. Family court can be difficult. You do not have to pretend you are not frightened. Maya gave a faint smile. I am terrified. Good, Eleanor replied softly. The people who are afraid usually understand what is truly worth losing. When Maya finally left the center, the evening air carried the scent of rain. She chose to walk the mile back to Maple Street instead of taking the bus, needing time alone with her thoughts. Storefront lights reflected across wet sidewalks while families drifted in and out of restaurants preparing for dinner. Through one window, she saw a little girl laughing as her mother wiped ketchup from her cheek. Maya slowed her pace without realizing it. 5 birthdays. 5 first days of school. 5 Christmas mornings. Memories she would never recover. She slipped a hand into her coat pocket and touched the tiny silver heart charm again. Suddenly someone called her name. Miss Carter. Maya turned to find a young cashier from the neighborhood grocery store jogging toward her. The woman looked slightly out of breath. I hope you do not mind, she said. A little girl asked me to give this to you if I ever saw you. She handed Maya a folded sheet of notebook paper decorated with tiny blue stars. Maya recognized Lily's careful handwriting immediately. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it beneath the glow of a street lamp. The note contained only a few simple sentences. Dear Mom, I do not know who is telling the truth yet, but today I remembered something. I think I remember someone singing while making pancakes. Maybe it was you. Maybe it was Grandma. I am trying to remember by myself. Love, Lily. Tucked inside the paper was a tiny crayon drawing of 2 stick figures holding hands beneath a bright yellow sun. One figure was taller. The other had curly hair. Maya pressed the drawing against her chest as tears blurred the words. Lily was remembering. Not everything, but enough for hope to begin growing where fear had lived for years. At that exact moment, her phone vibrated again. This time it was Adrian. "I am sorry to interrupt," he said without preamble, "but I found something you need to see tonight." Maya wiped her eyes. "What happened?" "I located the hospice nurse who mailed your mother's package." His voice sounded unusually tense. "She agreed to meet us. But there is a problem." Maya's heartbeat quickened. "What kind of problem?" Adrian paused only briefly. "She says your mother left behind a box of letters addressed to Lily." Maya stopped walking altogether. The sounds of passing traffic faded beneath the pounding of her heart. "Letters?" she whispered. "Yes," Adrian answered quietly. "Letters your daughter was supposed to receive, one every birthday after your mother passed away." Maya closed her eyes. First, her own letters had disappeared. Now her mother's. Too many voices had been silenced for too many years. "Where is the box?" she asked. Adrian's answer came almost immediately, but it chilled her more than the evening wind. "That is exactly what someone else has been trying to find first." Rain began falling before Maya reached the corner where Adrian had asked her to meet him. Fine drops shimmered beneath the streetlights, turning the sidewalks into ribbons of reflected gold. Adrian was already waiting beside his SUV, holding an umbrella he immediately lifted over Maya without a word. Neither of them seemed to notice that his own shoulders remained exposed to the rain. He opened the passenger door, and within minutes they were driving through quiet neighborhoods toward the northern edge of the city. The windshield wipers moved in a steady rhythm while neither of them spoke. Finally, Maya broke the silence. "Tell me everything." Adrian kept his eyes on the road. "The hospice nurse's name is Margaret Collins. She cared for your mother during her final 6 months. Before she passed away, your mother gave her a sealed box and strict instructions. If anything ever happened to her, the box was to remain hidden until you were free." Maya stared through the rain-covered window. "Why not give it to Denise?" Adrian sighed softly. "Margaret asked your mother the same question." Maya slowly turned toward him. "And your mother said there were people she trusted and people she loved. Sometimes they were not the same." The words settled heavily between them. 20 minutes later, they arrived at a small white house surrounded by maple trees whose leaves glowed orange beneath the porch light. Margaret Collins greeted them with gentle eyes and silver hair pulled into a loose bun. She looked more like a retired schoolteacher than someone carrying secrets capable of changing lives. "Maya," she whispered warmly before embracing her without hesitation. "Your mother talked about you every single day." Maya could not answer immediately. The simple kindness of being hugged by someone who had known her mother felt almost overwhelming. Margaret invited them inside where the scent of cinnamon and chamomile tea filled the cozy living room. Family photographs covered nearly every shelf. A fire crackled softly inside the stone fireplace. Everything about the home felt peaceful, untouched by the storms waiting outside. Margaret carried a weathered wooden box into the room and placed it carefully on the coffee table. Maya immediately recognized it. Her grandfather had carved tiny oak leaves into its lid decades earlier. She had not seen it since childhood. Tears welled in her eyes before she even touched it. "She wanted Lily to know where she came from," Margaret said quietly. "Every birthday your mother wrote another letter. Stories about your family. Stories about you. Stories she hoped your daughter would someday read." Maya slowly lifted the lid. Inside lay neatly stacked envelopes, each marked with a different birthday. Age 9, age 10, age 11. Beside them rested several photographs, an old recipe card covered in flour stains, and a small velvet pouch. Maya reached for the first envelope with trembling fingers. Before she could open it, Margaret gently placed a hand over hers. "There is something else you should know first." Adrian looked toward the older woman with quiet concern. Margaret hesitated, choosing each word carefully. "Your mother believed someone was searching for this box before she died." Maya looked up sharply. "Did she tell you who?" Margaret slowly shook her head. "No names. Only that she overheard a conversation at the hospital. Someone was asking whether she had left anything behind that could reopen an old case." Adrian leaned forward. "Did she mention a lawyer?" "Only once," Margaret answered. "She repeated one name several times after waking from surgery. Victor." Adrian's expression immediately hardened. Maya noticed it. "You know him?" Adrian nodded reluctantly. Victor Haynes represented Blackwell Industries during the financial investigation 5 years ago. Silence settled over the room. The crackling fireplace suddenly sounded unnaturally loud. Maya finally understood why Adrian had carried so much guilt. The people surrounding his company had been woven through every chapter of her tragedy. Margaret carefully reached into the velvet pouch and removed a small brass key. This was hidden beneath the false bottom of the box. Maya accepted it cautiously. "What does it open?" "Your mother never told me." Margaret smiled sadly. "She only said that if you ever found the key, it meant you were finally ready to hear the entire truth." Before anyone could speak again, a sharp knock echoed through the front door. All three of them froze. Margaret frowned. "I'm not expecting anyone this late." Adrian stood immediately and glanced through the narrow window beside the entrance. His calm expression vanished. He stepped back from the glass and lowered his voice. "Do not answer the door." Maya's heartbeat quickened. "Who is it?" Adrian continued watching the porch in complete silence before answering with barely more than a whisper. "It is the same man who has been following you. And he is not alone." The knock came again, louder this time, followed by the muffled sound of rain dripping from the porch roof. Margaret instinctively reached for the telephone on the side table, but Adrian gently raised one hand. "Wait," he whispered. "If they are only checking whether anyone is home, we should not tell them exactly how many people are inside." Maya stood perfectly still beside the coffee table, one hand gripping the brass key while the other rested protectively over the wooden box. 5 years ago, she would have frozen because she was afraid. This time she remained still because she refused to lose another piece of her family. Through the narrow curtain beside the front window, she could make out only blurred shapes beneath dark umbrellas. One of the men stepped closer to the porch light, revealing the same baseball cap she had seen outside the community center. He did not pound on the door or shout. Instead, he slipped a business card beneath the welcome mat, looked directly toward the window as though he knew someone was watching, and calmly walked back toward a dark sedan waiting at the curb. Within seconds, the vehicle disappeared into the rain. Adrian waited another full minute before unlocking the front door. Cool air swept inside, carrying the scent of wet leaves. He bent down, lifted the edge of the welcome mat, and retrieved the card. His expression immediately tightened. Maya stepped beside him. "What is it?" Adrian handed her the card without speaking. Printed across the front in elegant black lettering were only 3 words. "Victor Haynes, attorney at law." On the back, someone had handwritten a single sentence. "We should talk before the hearing." Maya felt a chill unrelated to the weather. "He knows I am here." Adrian quietly closed the door. "He wants us to know that he knows." Margaret lowered herself slowly into an armchair, her face pale. "He never came here while your mother was alive." Adrian turned toward her. "Are you certain?" Margaret nodded. "If he had, I would have remembered." Maya looked down at the wooden box again. "Then he must have learned about it recently." Adrian's eyes shifted toward the stack of unopened letters. "Which means someone else may have been asking questions." The realization hung silently over the room. Someone close enough to the family had unknowingly, or perhaps knowingly, revealed that the box existed. Maya carefully picked up the first envelope addressed to Lily's 9th birthday. She wanted desperately to read every word her mother had written, but something told her the letters belonged to Lily first. "I cannot open these," she whispered. Margaret smiled softly. "Your mother hoped you would say exactly that." Maya gently returned the envelope to the box. "My daughter deserves to hear her grandmother's voice before anyone else's." Adrian watched her quietly. There was admiration in his eyes, but also something heavier. Regret, responsibility, perhaps even hope. As they prepared to leave, Margaret wrapped the wooden box in a faded quilt and handed it to Maya. "Keep it close," she said. "Truth has a strange way of finding daylight, but only if someone protects it long enough." Adrian carried the box to the SUV while Maya carefully slipped the brass key into the same pocket that held the silver heart charm. The 2 objects rested together for the first time in decades. During the drive back, rain continued falling against the windshield, but neither of them noticed. Maya finally broke the silence. "Do you think Denise knows about the letters?" Adrian answered honestly. "I do not know, but I have stopped assuming people are either completely innocent or completely guilty. Life is rarely that simple." Maya looked out at the passing city lights. She remembered Denise comforting Lily through fevers, attending school plays, helping with homework, and making birthday cakes while Maya had been absent. She also remembered 63 missing letters. Both truths could exist at the same time. When Adrian pulled up outside the apartment building, Maya thanked him quietly before stepping out with the quilt-wrapped box held tightly against her chest. As she reached her apartment door, she noticed something tucked beneath it. It was another folded sheet of notebook paper covered with tiny blue stars. Her heart immediately recognized Lily's handwriting. She unlocked the door, hurried inside, and unfolded the note beneath the kitchen light. The message was shorter than the last one. "Mom, today I asked Aunt Denise if you ever wrote to me." She started crying before she answered. I have never seen her cry like that before. I think there is something nobody is telling me. At the bottom of the page, Lily had drawn the same two stick figures as before. This time, however, there was a third figure standing several steps behind them. Above that figure, she had written one small question that made Maya's breath catch. "Who is the man helping you?" The question beneath Lily's drawing stayed with Maya long after she folded the note and placed it beside the wooden box. Who is the man helping you? It seemed simple enough, yet she realized she did not truly know the answer herself. Adrian Blackwell had given her a home, a job, and the first real hope she had felt in years, but every act of kindness seemed tied to a mistake he had carried in silence. Before dawn the following morning, Maya stood at her kitchen counter staring at the brass key beside the silver heart charm. Two small objects, two unfinished stories. She slipped both into her coat pocket before heading to the community center. The day moved quickly. Families arrived looking for warm coats before the first frost. Volunteers packed grocery boxes for elderly neighbors. Maya spent hours carrying donations, helping children choose books from the reading corner, and listening more than she spoke. Shortly after lunch, Eleanor approached carrying a folded newspaper. "There is someone asking for you at the front desk," she said gently. Maya's pulse quickened, but when she stepped into the lobby, she found Adrian standing beside the reception counter. He looked unusually tired, as though sleep had become a luxury he no longer trusted. "I need to show you something," he said quietly. 20 minutes later, they were seated inside a conference room at Blackwell Industries. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline, but Maya barely noticed the view. Adrian placed a weathered banker box onto the table between them. "These came from our company archives," he explained. "Records scheduled for destruction under routine document retention policies. I requested everything connected to the investigation before anything disappeared." Maya slowly opened the box. Inside were financial reports, internal memoranda, and email printouts yellowed with age. Adrian carefully removed one folder and slid it toward her. "Read the signature page." Maya scanned the document. Her eyes stopped at the bottom. "Victor Haynes, Chief Legal Counsel." Directly beneath it appeared another signature she immediately recognized. "Adrian Blackwell." She looked up without speaking. Adrian nodded once. "That is the document I told you about." His voice remained steady despite the weight of the confession. "It authorized the findings that cleared the company of wrongdoing." Maya continued reading until one paragraph caught her attention. "Certain supporting evidence has been deemed irrelevant to the final determination." She frowned. "What supporting evidence?" Adrian reached into the folder and produced a thin envelope marked confidential. "That question haunted me for years." He carefully opened it. Inside rested a photocopy of a witness statement that had never been included in the official case file. Maya read every line slowly. The witness had identified another employee accessing the financial records shortly before the investigation began. It was not Maya. She looked at Adrian in disbelief. This was ignored. "Hidden," Adrian corrected quietly. "Someone decided it complicated the conclusion they wanted." Maya lowered the papers with trembling hands. "Then why did nobody come back for me?" Adrian looked out toward the city before answering. "Because once a case is closed, reopening it becomes expensive, embarrassing, and politically dangerous." His honesty hurt more than any comforting lie could have. At that moment, the conference room door opened softly. A gray-haired man wearing reading glasses stepped inside, carrying another file. "Mr. Blackwell," he said, "I found what you requested." Adrian introduced him simply. "This is Harold Simmons. He has worked in our records department for 32 years. Harold nodded politely before placing the file on the table. "I almost threw this away last week," he admitted. "It was misfiled under a completely different case number." Maya opened the folder and froze. Attached to the front was a copy of an interview summary dated 5 years earlier. Across the top, stamped in red letters, were the words "interview canceled." The name beneath them belonged to Maya's mother. Tears gathered in Maya's eyes. "She tried to testify," she whispered. Harold adjusted his glasses sadly. "According to these notes, she contacted the company claiming she possessed information that could clear her daughter." Adrian slowly closed his eyes. "I never saw this file." Harold hesitated before adding one final sentence. "Because it never reached your office." Silence settled over the room until Maya finally looked at Adrian again. For the first time since leaving prison, she saw not the wealthy executive standing before her, but a man confronting the cost of every decision he had failed to question. Adrian met her gaze without looking away. "If the court asks," he said quietly, "I will testify under oath that my signature helped bury the truth. Whatever happens to my position afterward is my responsibility." Maya stared at him, unable to speak. Outside the conference room, employees moved through the hallways unaware that 2 lives were being rebuilt, one honest sentence at a time. Then Adrian's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen, and the color immediately drained from his face. He looked back at Maya with quiet urgency. "Family court has been moved up," he said. "The hearing is tomorrow morning." Morning sunlight streamed through the tall courthouse windows, washing the polished floors in pale gold that seemed almost too gentle for a place where lives could change in a single afternoon. Maya stood outside the courtroom with the wooden box cradled against her chest, the brass key and silver heart charm resting together inside her coat pocket. Across the hallway, Denise sat beside Lily, smoothing invisible wrinkles from the little girl's yellow sweater with trembling hands. For the first time since Maya's release, Denise looked exhausted instead of certain. She caught Maya's eyes, then quietly looked away. There was no triumph left in her expression, only the weight of years spent carrying choices she no longer knew how to defend. When the hearing began, the courtroom remained calm and respectful. The judge listened carefully as both sides presented their concerns. Denise spoke honestly about raising Lily through fevers, school plays, nightmares, and birthdays. She admitted she feared another painful separation would break the child she had worked so hard to protect. Maya did not interrupt. Every word hurt, yet every word carried truth. When it was Maya's turn, she rose slowly. She did not ask for sympathy. She did not blame Denise. She simply described every letter she had written, every holiday she had counted, every promise she had whispered into prison darkness, believing her daughter would somehow hear it. Then she gently placed the wooden box onto the evidence table. "My mother spent her final years writing these letters for Lily," Maya said softly. "I have never opened them because they were never mine. They belong to my daughter." The courtroom grew noticeably quieter. Even Denise lowered her eyes. Adrian was called next. He walked to the witness stand without hesitation, raised his hand, and swore to tell the truth. Then he did something Maya had not expected. He accepted responsibility before anyone asked him to. 5 years ago," Adrian said steadily, "I signed documents without asking enough questions. My signature helped close an investigation that should never have ended. I cannot change what happened, but I can refuse to hide from it any longer." He presented the forgotten witness statement, the canceled interview with Maya's mother, and the archived records Harold had recovered. The judge studied each document carefully. Victor Haynes remained silent throughout the proceedings, his confidence fading with every page that entered the record. Then something unexpected happened. Lily slowly raised her hand. The judge smiled kindly. "Would you like to say something?" Lily nodded. She walked carefully to the front of the courtroom, carrying the bracelet she had found. Her small fingers turned it over before she opened the hidden clasp. Inside, delicate engraved words caught the light. "Mommy did not leave. Mommy chose love every day." A quiet gasp rippled through the room. Tears filled Denise's eyes before she could stop them. She covered her face for a moment, then stood slowly. "Your Honor," she said with a trembling voice, "there is something I need to admit." She explained that the letters Maya had written had arrived regularly for years. At first she hid them because Lily cried for days after reading the first one. Later she convinced herself that protecting Lily meant protecting the life they had built together. Somewhere along the way, protecting became controlling and fear became habit. "I never wanted to steal her mother," Denise whispered. "I only became terrified of losing the little girl who had become my daughter too." Maya looked at her quietly before speaking. You gave Lily a home when I could not. For that I will always be grateful. But now she deserves the whole truth. The judge recessed briefly before returning with a thoughtful expression. He ordered the guardianship petition dismissed and restored Maya's parental rights, while establishing a gradual transition that allowed Lily to maintain a healthy relationship with Denise. Children rarely benefit from losing people who genuinely love them, he said gently. They benefit from adults who finally choose honesty. As everyone stepped outside the courthouse, Maya paused on the same stone steps where she had once imagined losing everything forever. This time Lily looked at her for only a second before running across the sidewalk. Maya knelt just as her daughter wrapped both arms around her neck. Neither of them spoke. They did not need to. Behind them, Denise quietly smiled through tears while Adrian watched from a respectful distance, his shoulders lighter than they had been in years. Several months later, the East Side Community Resource Center opened a new legal assistance program for parents rebuilding their lives after incarceration. Adrian quietly funded the project but refused to place his name on the building. Maya coordinated the program, helping families find the hope she had almost lost. On Saturday mornings, she and Lily still burned pancakes because they always ended up dancing in the kitchen before breakfast was finished. Sometimes Denise joined them, laughing as smoke filled the apartment and windows had to be opened even in winter. The silver heart charm hung once again from the restored bracelet, and the brass key eventually opened a small cedar chest containing old family recipes, photographs, and one final note from Maya's mother. It read, "The truth may arrive slowly, but kindness helps it find the right door." Years earlier, Maya had walked through a prison gate believing freedom meant leaving the past behind. Standing in her own kitchen with her daughter laughing beside her, she finally understood that real freedom had never been about walking out. It had always been about finding the courage to come home.